Well, actually, before speaking, let me take a moment to pay my respects and gratitude to my spiritual teachers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Siddha Swarupananda Brahman Sati Namini. In the last month or so, on the Sundays, there may be people here who have not haven't come to the Sundays in the last month or so. We've been exploring through yoga wisdom what kirtan is, what this is all about, what the benefits of it are, the origins of it, the history of it, and how it can, help us in our life. So tonight is a little bit of an extension of that as it flows into the real world in what we are experiencing and what we will all go through. Of course, we've been touching on the idea that, through mantra meditation on transcendental sound, whether it be in the form of, like we did earlier with the Guranga meditation, where we're adding mantra to the breath, simple. It can also be a silent form of meditation, where we're meditating upon a mantra silently in the mind. These are all meditations. And then there are practices like japa meditation. We have a mala, meditation beads, like prayer beads, and it's a personal practice, a daily practice that we may have, meditation on mantra in that way. And then, of course, our favorite, and in fact is described in the yoga text as being the most powerful of all forms of meditation, the practice of kirtan, where we are singing with others these transcendental sounds, these sacred mantras. This is described as the most powerful and the most effective form of meditation. And all the things, as I said, which flow from that. It helps us to relieve some stress. When we go home after tonight, we'll feel some of the burden of the stress and worries of life have been lifted from our hearts and from our minds. So this is an immediate thing, that we will experience. Of course, it's nice, isn't it, as well? I mean, what an amazing band, the fabulous Ashraya. They're just so good, and the wonderful Madhulila Dasi, and everybody, who's part of it. It's just a very nice experience. It's uplifting, it's inspiring, so many different levels. And previously we were talking about how these transcendental sounds actually are the spiritual food that we, the soul, the Atma, the person, that we are looking for. It is spiritual nourishment for each one of us. In the same way as our body needs nourishment, it needs to be taken care of. So we, the self, who is different from the body and different from the ever-changing mind, we are the eternal self. Atma means the true self. So who we are the eternal spiritual being dragging around this carcass of bone and blood and stool and urine and hair and skin. I hope you don't think it's you. You are not a bag of stool and pee and sweat and mucus and bone and hair. That is not you. I hope you understand that. You are much more than a bag of that stuff, right? Someone gave you a garbage bag full of those ingredients, and even if they shaped it nicely, that's still what it is. And you wouldn't like to hug it and sleep with it at night, right? Because it's not very pleasant. Well, that's what these things are made of, aren't they? I'm not making that up, am I? No, this is what they're made of. But the reason they appear to be attractive is because we are in it. We, the beautiful, amazing spirit soul, we are in these things, and that's why it appears to be attractive. And the minute that we leave it, we all immediately see it for what it is. Eek. Right? Scary. So we come to understand and be situated in self-realization. Understanding aham brahmasmi, I am spirit. I am part of the Supreme Spirit. I am eternal. I will never die. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, for the living being, for you and I, never was there a time that we did not exist. Never. And never shall we cease to exist in the future. We are eternal, ever existing and undying. We do not die when the body dies. That is our true nature. So kirtan, mantra meditation, can purify the heart and mind of all the, what in yoga is called avidya. It means ignorance, basically, illusion, which is covering me, the pure soul. And we begin to see who we truly are. What is our real nature? What is our relationship with this world? What is our relationship with the other living beings in this world? And ultimately, what is our relationship with the Supreme Soul, of whom we are part of? This will all become revealed from within as we practice regularly this hearing and chanting of these holy names of the Divine, of the Supreme. And these names, these beautiful names, connect us to the Supreme Soul. That there is no difference between the beautiful names of the Supreme and the Supreme. They are completely and fully spiritual. So we can feel, as we are engaging in our kirtan, we can actually feel that spiritual connection. So anyway, there's so many things we spoke about. So what I wanted to touch on tonight is how the holy names, these divine names, can actually save us from the fear of death. And actually, we talked about this a little bit in our brief chat yesterday in our birthday celebration. This centre is 2 years, had its second birthday yesterday. So we had a little chat. And we were talking about how what yoga is and what meditation is and what kirtan is, that actually it helps us to lead a joyful and happy life now as we journey through this life in these carcasses. And then when we leave these carcasses behind, we can actually experience a fearless death. Because even though we may deny it, in fact, everyone ultimately is afraid of death. That's a fact. Even though philosophically we might say, oh no, I'm not afraid of death, it's just part of life. And there's so many different things we say and try to convince ourselves of. The reality is, when it comes to that experience, the majority of people, we are fearful of death. So kirtan, or finding shelter in these beautiful names of the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Friend, can make this journey through the jaws of death fearless. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that on Friday evening, a very dear spiritual brother of mine left this world. He left his body. And if we have a picture, hopefully we have a picture of him. Nice Aussie bloke. His name is Krishna Stokaladas. So he's what is known in yoga or as a god brother of mine or a spiritual brother of mine. We have the same spiritual teacher. So we've known each other. I was trying to work it out today. Sometime in the 80s, early 80s is when we first met. So a couple of years, 40 odd years, isn't it? That's 40, probably pretty close to exactly 40 years. And so he left his body. He's been dealing with cancer for the last 4 or 5 years. So, we've been through all the treatments, did everything possible. And like I said, around about 8 o'clock-ish on Friday, that journey finished. So he left his body. So there's many things I can say about Krishna Stokala, but this is not meant to be awake. But from many points of view, a person who, may think, his he's an ordinary guy, right? Krishna Stokala, his name is Krishna Stokaladas. He's just nothing, outstandingly special about Krishna Stokaladas from the worldly point of view. But from my perspective and my experience and our relationship, he was actually an extraordinary, ordinary man. Ever since he was introduced to the path of yoga and to his spiritual teacher and practicing his sadhana, his spiritual practice, He's always been very diligent in his practice. He's always been very determined and motivated to not let the storms of life interfere with what he understood to be the real goal and purpose of life. He was convinced about what the goal and purpose of life is. And throughout his spiritual journey, no matter what came, what ill health, good health, materially things are going well, materially things are not going so well, he stuck very firmly to his spiritual practices, both the chanting of these names of Krishna, these names of God on his japa mala. He had a certain vow each day which he would chant on his beads, the names of the Supreme. He would regularly teach also other people how to practice meditation in the way that he had been taught, just in small ways here and there. Not like, we're doing here, and here it's like, oh yes, they're doing so much, or there's a bunch of people here relative to that. But this is not what it's all about. It's about the quality of a person's heart and what their life is and their care for others. So my experience is that Krishna Kaladas cared for others. Then this is the actual outcome of spiritual life, is an actual genuine care. He was never externally a very spiritual person. You know how sometimes people we try to be a bit spiritual, like how we dress, we've got to have a man bun if we're a man, and, we've got to wear certain clothes, it's got to be organic cotton, and we've got to speak in, like I am now, in a very measured voice, very spiritual voice, you know what I mean? Because that's, I'm doing that because I'm trying to be spiritual at this moment, But, if you meet me outside of this, it's very different, right? And you don't raise your voice, and you look people deeply in the eyes when you're talking to them, you're just trying to be spiritual, Nathan. There's certain there's certain externals that we can get, wrapped up in what spiritual is. My friend Krishna Kaladas was never like that. He was a real person. Bit rough around the edges, thankfully. But like as I said, very deeply concerned for the well-being of others. He has helped me in my life in many different ways and is an inspiration to me in how he went along in his life with his sadhana, his spiritual practice. So he also, leading up to, recently, in recent times, he's been going through chemo and things like that. And I can tell you that's not a lot of fun. But he was always, even last time I saw him, however long ago that was, not that long ago, he's still cracking jokes. And I heard even a couple of days before he left, he was telling, really bad dad jokes and all kind of stuff. And as it became more and more obvious that his time for departure was coming closer, his taking shelter in these holy names of the Supreme became deeper and deeper. So the reason I'm even bringing this up, although most of you, if not, don't know Krishna Kaladas, he is Nitai's father. Sorry, Nitai is not bad for his age, right? Nitai is Krishna Kala's son. So he was there when he left, chanting to his father, holding his father in his embrace. But here he is today, helping us chant. So thank you, mate. So the reason, again, I bring it up is because he is a dear friend, but also to continue the idea of what kirtan is for, of what the real benefits of it are. We all have mortalitis. Do you know that? Every one of us has been diagnosed with mortalitis as far as these bodies go. There's going to be an end to them. Whether your body is 10, 20, 60, 70, there is a point where we will need to leave these bodies. It is inescapable. We can take our ginseng, we can jog, you can come here and do yoga every day. You can do the relaxation, you can do everything, vegetarian, vegan, raw, everything. But still, there is a use-by date on these bags of bone, hair, blood, poo, pee. You know, when you actually start to analyse what the body's made of, it's no wonder that we need things to spray in our mouth. It's surprising to me that it doesn't stink worse than it does when you actually know what's inside it, right? So what we are hoping, what we ourselves are striving for, is so that we can live this joyful and happy life now, knowing who we really are and what our real purpose of life is. To spend whatever time we may have, and there is no guarantee. Krishna Kaladas, his body was younger than mine. There's no guarantees. We don't know. And, we've spoken about this, at different times in the past. If you know you're going on a journey somewhere, then you prepare, don't you? Like you're going to go overseas somewhere, and maybe you're going to go and live there. You're not coming back to this particular place. Then you prepare for your departure, for your journey, don't you? Well, we have to, otherwise you can't go anywhere. So, you've got to make sure your visa's all there, your passport's up to date, where you're going is arranged, who's going to meet you there, so many different things. So, okay, I'm letting you know now, there is going to be a time when you have to depart everyone and everything. Are you, like, if it was today, okay, you're not going to go home to your home here. Are you ready for that today? If you honestly think about it. Oh no, I've got to get this, okay, we're all going to London and we're not coming back. How long would it take you to prepare to have that? Oh, well, I've got to take care of this and got to take care of that, and I've got, so many things. Well, that's like, I think Christ said it in something like, death comes like a thief in the night when we least expect it. So it is intelligent to actually understand, people talk about, and it's true, that life, it is a time when we are meant to learn, isn't it? Life is meant to be to learn lessons, yeah? And this is absolutely true. So what is the lesson? The main lesson is Aham Brahmasmi. I am spirit. This world is not the home of the soul. This is not your home. You cannot find a perfect home, a peaceful home here, because you do not belong here. You are an alien. Do you know that? People talk about UFOs and are they real? And they are. You're an alien. I'm an alien. We are all aliens. We are not even earthies, let alone Australians or Americans or Chinese or any of that. These are all labels on these temporary bags of bone. We are all, every single living being, we are the eternal spark of life, the eternal part of the Supreme Soul, and we are away from our natural home. We are aliens. So we are meant to go back home. We are meant to go back home. But we have been away from home for so long, we have forgotten where home is and what home is and who we actually are. We have spiritual amnesia. So yoga, spiritual life, these beautiful holy names, these all wake us up to the reality of who we are, where real joy and happiness is to be found in our relationship with the Supreme Soul. And when we leave this body behind, which is inevitable, if we are prepared by regularly engaging and cultivating wisdom and spiritual love, then the goal is to go back home from where you have come from. Because in this world, we experience many foreign and undesirable things. Birth, disease, old age, and death. These are described in the yoga teachings as whips that whip us And I was talking to Madhilila when we were reading this the other morning. Yeah, the whips are like the cat of nine tails. You know what they are? They're like a whip with 9 little bones or things, and people got whipped with them. So these are described by the transcendentalists who actually want to help us and to save us from suffering as being whips that beat us through life. Birth, disease, old age, death. And that's without taking into account things like broken hearts, broken love affairs, anxieties and fears, different things. Too cold, too hot. The list goes on. This is not the nature of the soul. We are Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of wisdom and awareness, and blissful by nature. So your goal, your purpose in life is to actually come to realize who you are, what the purpose of life is, and to achieve that. Like this idea of it's a school where we're meant to learn, right? So let's run with that a little bit. So you're not meant to go to school forever, although I know someone, a friend of mine, did. So an Italian friend of mine, he had something like 35 doctorates. Now, slight exaggeration, but he was still going to school in his 30s, like non-stop from when he was a kid. So he's a permanent student. But we're not meant to go to school forever. What are we meant to do? What's the end of education? To graduate, aren't we? Isn't that what we're meant to do? We're meant to learn enough so that we can graduate. So that's what life is meant to be. We're not meant to endlessly go class after class after class after class, endlessly, meaning life after life after life after life. No, we're meant to finish and graduate. So it is possible for every single one of us to graduate. This time round, this time, this life, if we desire, if we make the decision, and then if we act upon that decision to do whatever the fuck I need to do to achieve that goal. To do anything worthwhile in life, you have to be determined. You can't let other things interfere with it. Yeah? If you get sidetracked and detoured, you won't achieve your goal. So once you become convinced of what your real purpose here is, then we can make that decision and then act upon the decision and do what I need to do to achieve that goal, to end this cycle of repeated birth and death, to come back to your natural condition, Sat Chit Ananda. So this is what this is all about. This is what we personally are trying to achieve. And this is what we want to give anyone who wants it. There's no strings attached. It was given to me by my spiritual teacher. It was given to Krishna Stokala Das by our spiritual teacher. He was intelligent because he took it seriously, and he has now graduated. He was attached to the holy names, to these beautiful sounds of the Supreme. He took shelter in them, so then when it was time to leave, he had that shelter. It was not full of fear. So I know he would also like his life to continue to be of benefit to others. So if this little, thing we're mentioning today, if it even sparks a little, if it touches your heart even a little bit, then it will be worthwhile having spoken about him today. So please consider it. It's up to us. Or we can get swept up in these frickin' things which steal our time away. This is the worst. These can be really wonderful, but they steal our life away. That's a fact. And I know better, and I find, holy shit, and put it down, right? So don't let these precious time, which is the most precious thing you have, be stolen. Willfully, actually. Take shelter in these holy names of the supreme shelter. This is not about Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, none of that. You are spirit soul. I am spirit soul. I have an eternal relationship, an eternal bond of love with the Supreme Soul. And to reconnect with that relationship of love is the goal of your life. It is what you are looking for, even if you don't know it. We're looking externally in so many things. And as the song goes, still not found what I'm looking for. I have now found what I am looking for. So now, let me pursue it. It doesn't mean we have to give up our life. This is a deep subject. You can talk on it for many, many months. So it isn't like we have to give anything up. It's a matter of adding something to our life. Add the regular meditation on the holy names of the Supreme. Whatever those names that you are familiar with are, here, because of the spiritual lineage that we're coming in, and we've been given these beautiful transcendental names of the Supreme. The names of the Supreme are unlimited, hundreds and millions and billions of names, but because of our spiritual lineage, we are chanting or meditating on these particular names, Krishna, Govinda, Gopala, Haribol, etc. So you are welcome to take these names free of charge, add them to your life, chant regularly, family, friends, by yourself, and then gradually you'll see what is unfolding before you. And it is most wonderful. That's my experience. So, on the behalf of everyone here who's trying to put on what we're doing, and on behalf of my friend Krishna Stokala Das, I would like to beg you to consider to add this as a part of your life. Thank you very much. And yet, if you want to, while the musicians are coming back, if you want to find out more, then you ask, because there's other things that we have where you can learn more and practice more. So don't be shy. You have to be a little bit upstanding and, motivated and take your life into your own hands and ask.